Hello, guys. Everyone. Make sure to go to this GitHub repository that I posted in the chat and install all the prerequisites in the README, which is Python 3.6 plus. Let me just actually go to it. Python 3.6 plus, Git, Visual Studio Code, and pipenv. Most of you have this usually. If you don't, just install it now. We will start at 12:05. Again, please install the prerequisites. Python 3.6 plus. Anything below 3.6 is something that we're not going to be using. Git, which some of you may already have. Visual Studio Code, which some of you may have. And pipenv, which some of you may not have. I would recommend installing that. You don't necessarily need to install pipenv, but it's best to do so. Let me just go back here. We'll start at 12:05. Feel free to send a message on the chat if you need any help. You've installed the prerequisites on this GitHub repository that's mentioned in this GitHub repository. Make sure to go to slido.com and put in that number. We're going to be doing some quizzes. There's going to be a grand prize at the end. Whoever gets a good one. Whoever's the winner. We're going to start soon. Make sure to go to this GitHub repository, install all the prerequisites, and go to slido.com and put in that number for a grand prize at the end. Whoever is going to be number one to finish that quiz that we're going to be doing. All right, we have 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's 12:05. All right. Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Can someone put a message in the chat so I know that you guys are hearing me? No way. Okay, great. I see you guys. All right. So now I'm just going to go to... Actually, let me introduce myself. My name is Alvin. I just finished classes a month ago at the University of Toronto. This past summer, I've helped with the vaccine initiative in the country with Vaccine Hunters Canada. Some of you may know what it is. But basically what I did was help build a backend for a vaccine searching tool that has been used over 2 million times. And today I'm going to be talking about the technology behind that FastAPI. We were able to quickly implement a API interface at the back using FastAPI for Vaccine Hunters Canada. And you could actually access the code at Vaccine Hunters Canada. And we're going to build a FastAPI backend like you see here, api.vaccinehunters.ca. We're not going to be building something exactly like this. We're going to be building a Notes app, but you kind of get the gist of what we're building. We're building an API that actually talks to relational database. And FastAPI is great in so many ways. It allows you to automatically document your API. It automatically documents your API. It uses Python's type hints. It's very easy. It's very good. Yeah, sure. I'll go over that. I haven't started with the GitHub stuff yet. All right. So that's just an introduction to FastAPI. Now let's actually get into GitHub and start downloading it from there. So hopefully everyone has downloaded the prerequisites. If you haven't, it's fine. You could just follow along. It's not really a coding session. It's more of like an introduction. But if you want to, you can definitely download these things and code alongside me. So yeah, so if you guys, hopefully you guys have this. Yeah, I have this pinned on the chat. So let's just follow along with me step by step. I'm just going to clone the repository, which is basically putting this project into my local file system. So let me just copy this command. And then I'm on VS Code, and I'm just going to open up a terminal, which I have here. I don't need to open it up, but it's here. And I'm just going to Control V and clone the repository. Here it is. And now I'm just going to change directory. Well, I'm not actually going to change directory. I'm just going to open this in VS Code. Just give it a second. Development. Workshop new. FastAPI workshop. I'm just going to open it. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to open up a new terminal. Give it a sec. Now what's the next step? Change directory to root, which I am already in roots in this folder, basically. Let me just, why isn't the terminal working? Okay, there you go. There it goes. All right, now before anything, let's run pipenv install. If you don't have pipenv installed and you are trying to code this alongside me, make sure to run pip install or have a virtual environment ready if you guys know what a virtual environment is, and then run pip install in there. So what I'm just going to do is run pipenv install. And this is just basically going to install all the dependencies in the pip file. So I'm just going to do pipenv install, and it should be installing stuff for me. Installing dependencies is going to take a bit of time. Like I said, don't worry about coding it. You guys are just following along. If you are coding alongside me, which we're going to be doing some of it, then make sure to install it through pipenv or install it through pip or through virtual environment and then do pip in there. Let me just turn off my Discord notifications. Sorry. All right. Now pipenv is installed. What I'm going to do is run pipenv shell, which is going to load a virtual environment for me. Okay, there I go. It's launching a subshell in virtual environment, and it just activated it. So now I'm in an actual virtual environment where I can run my code now. I'm just going to select the Python interpreter in VS Code really quickly. FastAPI. Chop. Okay, what I'm going to do actually. I'm actually going to do, let's run this. FMV shell. Oh God, okay. All right, it's very hard for me to, let me just copy this. /bin/python. Never mind. Let's just ignore that for now. Let's just continue on with our tutorial. All right. So now I have pipm shell install. I ran a shell, and now I'm in the shell. So if I do pip list, I should see a bunch of things installed. There you go. Everything, all our dependencies are installed for us in this virtual environment. And now I'm just going to run this command, which is going to basically run the server. Python.app.main. And our server just started. So there you go. Everything's installed. And if you click on this link, or if you click on localhost 8000/swagger, for example, either one works. Actually, /docs. You should be able to see this page. So localhost 8000/docs. This is where our API documentation is. All right, so now let me just, is everyone good so far? Do I have to slow down, or is everyone good? Someone just give me a thumbs up in the chat, just so I know how everyone's feeling right now. I don't know if I could see the latest messages. Everything's good? No? Hey, Prashant, can you hear me? Prashant, can you hear me in the chat? Okay, never mind. All right. I just wanted to double check. Nothing. Sorry, I was in a different call. Okay, all right. Everything's good so far. Like I said, you don't have to follow me. You don't have to exactly follow me. Just listen to what I have to say. Just going to increase it so you guys can actually see the whole thing. Now, I'm just going to give a basic introduction to FastAPI again. It's a web framework using Python type hints. Companies like Uber, not Facebook, as I know of, Uber, Microsoft, Netflix have been using it. It's fairly new. It's open source on GitHub, and it's one of the quickest web frameworks. And it's an emerging web framework. You can compare it to Golang web frameworks or Node.js web frameworks. It's as fast as those, if you guys know what those are. And it's also fast to develop on. That's why we used it at Vaccine Hunters Canada. Okay, so all of our app is in this app folder. I've created all these files. You don't necessarily need to know everything. The most important file that we do need to know is main.py and api.py. Everything else could be garbage. I mean, it isn't garbage, but think of it as extra things that we're going to be learning on top of what we have here. Oh yeah, also schemas.py is important. API schemas, dependencies. Basically, I missed a couple. API, schemas, dependencies, and main is the most important ones. All right, so main.py is what we're running because we did python-module app.main, and this is basically the thing that we're running. Uvicorn is a HTTP server. So we're in the main file. So that's why it's running the actual app on port 8000. So now let's actually get into FastAPI. So here, when you actually start with a project in FastAPI, you define an app like this. And FastAPI takes a bunch of different things. Like I said, FastAPI does have automatic API generation. If you see settings.py, these are basically settings that we have for the whole app, like project name, the database URL, things like those. So I'm just going to call these sometimes. You don't necessarily need to have them. You could actually hard code these things, but it's good to have a settings.py so you can always change values whenever you need to. And also, by the way, I put all the explanation I have for each of the files up at the top of the file, and also references to the actual tutorials online. So don't worry about all that. Let's go back to main.py and let's start our FastAPI project, or let's modify it so it actually works. I'm just going to uncomment some of this. So title, description, version, all of this is defined in settings.py. So notes API, description, version, and you could see that this is blank right now, like the title's FastAPI. I'm just going to refresh it. And now this is, we named it notes API. This is the actual description, and this is the version of the API, which I actually defined here. And then I'm going to define the actual URL. So I'm going to uncomment this. So this is where the OpenAPI, Swagger, and Redoc URLs will be. I'll explain what those are in a second. So I'm just going to save it. And docs is not there anymore. It's actually going to be /Swagger because we changed the URL of the docs to /Swagger. And the OpenAPI JSON file is here. So what is OpenAPI? What is Swagger? OpenAPI is an API specification. It allows people to document their APIs. It's human readable. I mean, it's machine readable. So you can put it into like a generator and automatically generate server-side code, client-side code. So for example, if I was working on building a FastAPI server, I can quickly implement the APIs, get the OpenAPI specification that's automatically generated for me, and then put it into a generator, get the types out for TypeScript or for Axios or something in the front end, like React, like things to call, I don't know if React, like Axios, like JavaScript functions to actually call our APIs. We can actually do that using this OpenAPI specification. So like all the types, the things you need, like the URL, the inputs, which we expected for the outputs, all those things are defined inside this OpenAPI specification. It's machine readable. It allows you to generate code server-side and client-side. I won't go into it in detail, but it is very interesting. It allows you to save time when you're developing things. I highly recommend using FastAPI during your development process and during a hackathon because it does save time. All right. So like I said, OpenAPI.json is or OpenAPI spec file, like you saw before, is something that's machine readable. So when you actually go to /Swagger, it's a Swagger UI. It takes a spec file /OpenAPI.json right over here, and it reads it, and then it generates a whole user interface for it. So you see, if you go to /OpenAPI.json, the title of the API documentation is Notes APIs. So that's why it's named Notes APIs here. Now, let's actually start writing some code, or actually go through the folder structure and then start writing some code so we can actually use and build an API that we can talk to with the database. Okay. All right, so let's start with this task. Create a controller, which is something that takes in, oh shoot. Okay, that takes in like data, and you're supposed to take out data, send data back. That's what a controller is. So there's like something called controllers and something called services. If you dealt with like Java, like Spring services, a Spring is like the Spring Web Framework with Java, then you probably wouldn't know what a controller is. But if you don't, it's totally fine. A controller is basically a manager. It takes in a request. It sends information to workers, which is like it sends tasks to like functions, and then collects all the data and then sends back a response. So it takes a request and sends back a response. So let's actually build an API at /API/test. It's just the endpoint. We're going to make it a get. So we're just going to like a get endpoint. And we're going to return a specific type of JSON body. So let me just do that. To do this, I can use this app, and then I put in something like get API/test, sort of like Flask, if you guys know what Flask is. And then I would define the function test. You can name it whatever you want. And then it doesn't necessarily need to take in data. And I can return this. Let's see if it works. Let's refresh. There you go. Automatic code generation, right? So it knows it doesn't take any parameters because I didn't define it. If you are going to take any parameters, it would be inside of here. So if I were to do something like some query parameters, string, right? And then I refresh this, you can see that I require this type of data, right? So if I were to put it in, for example, and I see the actual request, you can see that this is the actual endpoints, this is the query parameter, and this is our value. So this is pretty simple. We just declared, like, we're just writing Python really easily. You don't really need to do much as other web frameworks. You could easily build a web API. This is what's good about FastAPI. It's fast. You could also declare things like tags. So put for example, if you see this, it's under a default tag. So tags are basically ways to organize your APIs. So if you have like 300, 500, 1,000 APIs, you can gather them all into like a specific tag, right? So I'm just going to write tags equals to example, right? And then I'm just going to refresh this. Oh. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Wait, give me a second. For some reason, it's not working here. I wish I had. Okay, let me just actually open up another folder for a second. File, open folder, FastAPI workshop. Okay. Don't save. Cancel. Okay. Let's do this. Put down shell. I'm just doing this so I know, so I can actually refer and actually go into specific things. Just give me a second. Python app.main. what did we do? We went and did app get API/test f test return this. Okay. Refresh. Should work. Yeah, okay. And then I should be able to should take in a bunch of tags. Let's refresh this. Hopefully it works. Okay, there you go. I don't know why it didn't work before. Anyways, tags are ways you organize your APIs, right? And you can have multiple tags if you want to. So you can take in query parameters. You can take in a whole body through the function, so like a request body. If you guys know what HTTP is, hopefully. But an HTTP request usually has a body and a header. You can take a body and then the actual URL parameters as well, and then turn back a response. And by the way, FastAPI isn't just for REST, like what we have right here, but you can also have GraphQL, and you can have one single endpoint, and then have like one single function like this. So like a /API/GraphQL, if you guys know what GraphQL is, and then you can actually put your GraphQL like root up in here, and then query your GraphQL, query or mutate through GraphQL like that. Or you can have WebSockets. The possibilities are endless. But like right here, we're just going to be talking about REST, or using REST as an example for FastAPI. Okay, so that's what I did. Very simple, very basic introduction to returning this specific thing. So if I'm going to call this, try it out, and execute, the response is what was expected. And I can actually modify some other things. So if I were to, there's actually so many options I can do, so many things I can do. So I can provide examples of like what a response should look like. For example, you see code 200. This is what something should actually look like. Like there's an example value here. It's not correct, but it is what it is. It is something that's that we're expecting. You can have examples for different status codes. So yeah, so that's the gist of FastAPI's controllers. And it's a very powerful thing. What's more powerful is its use with other third-party modules, packages like Pydantic, which is where we define our schemas, things that we actually take in and things we take out. So let me just import schemas in here, give you guys like a taste of what it is. So okay. So if I can actually take in specific data, like a user, and then let me just call my schemas user create. So if you see in my schemas, I'm basically defining like what a specific model or a specific thing should look like. So this is what I should expect in a user create body, which is like an email and a password, right? User create inherits user base, which has email and then a password. So an email string and a password string. This is something that I expect to take in as a request. So if I refresh this OpenAPI spec, I should see this as an example value. And this is something that I should be taking in, right? So Pydantic is basically something that we use to define what we can take in and what we could take out. So what we take in as a request and what we should expect as a response. So if we're going to return something like schemas dot user. I should refresh this, and it should work. Okay, wait. So sorry, not like this. Response model. Because schemas dot user. This is the response model that I expect to have. So if I refresh this, you should see that this is what we expect to get back as a response. And this is what we expect to have as a request. So Pydantic is, with Pydantic, we're able to take in what we have for a request, take out what we want for a response. When we take in something for a request, Pydantic automatically validates data and serializes that. So we have access to it. So if I'm going to, for example, put in user create, so I'm going to put in return back an email, for example. So user.email, right? Because the schema user create inherits password and email. So I'm just going to return user.email. So if I refresh this, I don't necessarily need to, but I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to try it out. So with Swagger, I'm actually able to interact with my APIs. So user@example.com, string as the password. I'm going to execute this. And what I should expect back, that's strange. Oh, I should expect back schemas.user. So let me just clear this response body. Response model up. Request with head cannot have body. Oh, I need to change this to a post because you can't expect a body with the get method. So let me just refresh that. Executes, and I should see my email back, right? So in HTTP, you have multiple different methods: get, post, put, delete. Get is usually to get a resource. Post is usually to create a resource. Put is usually to update a resource. Delete is usually to delete a resource. So here, what happened earlier was the browser was complaining that you're trying to get a resource, but when you're getting a resource, you're actually sending data, which is not necessarily necessary, right? You don't need to send a request to get something, like a request body to get something. You just need to return. You actually just need to send an ID, and you usually send an ID through the URL. All right, so that's the gist of a controller. Now I'm just going to remove all this and start digging deeper. Is everyone good so far with what I just said? All good. All right. I don't know. People are probably asleep right now. I can imagine it. I feel a bit tired. Anyways, this is a recorded session, so I'm just going to continue. All right. And make sure to listen, because at the end of the whole thing, we have a quiz, and whoever takes in the quiz, whoever is number one on the quiz, they get a $25 Amazon gift card, by the way. All right. So usually apps like this, like a server like this, like our backend, usually you might have hundreds, 200s, 500s. FastAPI can scale. That's what I'm going to say. If you're going to have more than 100 APIs, 200 APIs, it's not a good idea to actually put it all in one file. What you might want to do instead is to create your own API files, right? For example, API.py. But instead of API.py, you can actually put them into multiple files and then call them. So here, for example, I'm just going to, but in this case, I actually put it all in one file. But what I'm going to do is actually include a router. So a router is a way to route different URLs in our app. So I'm just going to include a router, which is defined at api.py. So user router, and routers can also have tags. So everything that, so if you see register user, login access token, all these functions, you're able to actually take in, like they're all defined under the user tags. So these endpoints are defined under the user's tag. So I'm just going to include that router, and they should all have a prefix of /API/users. And whenever, and all the other ones, like all the functions here that have that router, they should also add slash whatever on top of it. So let me just refresh this to actually see what I mean. There you go. So /API/users is defined here as a prefix. And the router includes these two specific functions, two different controllers. So there's a post and a post. These two functions, one allows us to register a user, one allows us to log in with an access token. So that's what it does. You can see that this is what we expect from a request. So an email and a password. If you actually look at the schema, it's an email and a password. And this is what we expect when we send back a user, right? Just like an ID. So let me actually an ID and email. That's what we expect to send back. Schemas.user. So I'm just going to call some functions. Like I said, a controller that we have here manages things. So it takes a request and sends back a response. It delegates tasks to other things, to other functions called services. And a service, what we see here, get user by email or create user. Those type of things are service functions, I would say. They're CRUD functions, create, read, update, delete type of functions that actually access the database. And it just does one thing, one task usually. So get user by email, create user, those type of things. And a manager just takes all that and sends back a appropriate response. So you can see here, this is a post. So this is a post method. It's /API/users/register, right? The response is a user object. What we expect is a user create object. And I'm just going to talk about this soon. Then I'm going to actually call CRUD, which is basically our services file, and get that function, get user by email. So I'm going to put in the database object and also the email that we get from the request body. And if the database user exists, then we know the email is already registered. So we're going to raise an exception, say like a 400 exception saying, oh, this input is invalid. And then if it isn't invalid, I'm just going to create the user, right? So going back to line 21, DB is just our database object. And if you probably know this from school or whatnot, but there's something called dependency injection in FastAPI. It basically calls a specific function. Hello, Stephen. Stephen? I don't know if I got it right. Anyways, there's something called dependency injection inside FastAPI. So you're able to call a function before this function. Stephen, all right, I got you. So all our dependencies are located in dependencies.py. So as you can see, when we call depends equals depends get database, we want to call this function before we call everything else. So that's what we do. We actually get a local session from open up a local session in the database, a local session with the database, hold that session, and then finally close it once we're done with the request. So that's why we have a get DB. So we're basically getting a database object, and then we're placing into the service, and then that service handles everything with like manipulating data in the database. So I've registered a user, and I'm logging in as a user. So these are, if you guys have time, just take a look at this on your own. But the gist is you have a controller. This is how you declare a post method. This is what we expect from a request, and this is what we expect from a response. This is what we this is our database object that we get from we open up a local connection with our database, and we get it before this function is called. The rest of the function is executed. We utilize the dependency injection to actually call a different function. All right, and then we have some of these services where you pass in the database and the inputs that we need, and these services just execute whatever task we need it to do, right? So here I just registered a user, and I'm logging in with the access token. So here, if I try it, I can register a user. The password is string. The user is user@example.com. I'm going to execute this, and the email is already registered. I probably already registered it, and everything is stored in this file. But that's not really important. And then refresh. Okay. I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, okay. Yeah, there should be a button here that allows me to set different things. Anyways, I'm going to log in. Should get a JWT token, a JSON Web Token. A JSON Web Token is basically a token that allows us to identify the user. And then I should be able to authorize it. Let me see. I don't think we have time to actually write the code. So what I'm going to do is change the get checkout solutions, I think. Going to revert this, all discard changes. Checkout solutions. All right. Going to refresh this. Oh, I have to run it. Run this. All right. So at the end of the day, our app looks like this. If you're interested in learning more about like how the app works, you should dig deep into the actual app. But in general, this is what it should look like. Just take a look at each file, and then you'll better understand what it is. I'm just going to go dig deep a bit over it. Bear with me. We have like 10 minutes left. So that's why I had to put up the solutions. But basically, I have the access token. I'm just going to log in with the access token that I obtained from this endpoint. So I put in my email and the password, and I get that thing. And now I can retrieve who I am. So this is who I am, user@example.com with an ID 1. That's whoever is logged in right now. So how I created that endpoint was I got that router, and I did .get, which is the HTTP method we have, /me. And like I said before, the prefix is /API/users. So it should be /API/users/me. this is what I expect to return, and this is what I expect to get. And as you can see, we have another dependency which actually gets the current user. The way we get the current user is to take in the actual token that we have, decode it, and then get the actual current user in the database. But that's like some extra work, but you sort of get the gist of what it is, right? We get the current user and then we return the current user. And yeah, here's the notes section. We do use services like get note by user, create notes, update node. All of these are services that we use, and they're all defined in CRUD.py, right? So we take in the database object, we do something, we query it, filter it, whatever, right? For a specific database, which is inside db.sqlite 3. So all of these are basically services, specific tasks that we execute for within a database to get something or to manipulate something. That's what CRUD.py is for. That's where our services live. And API.py is where all our controllers live. Models.py, if you guys know anything about object relational mapping, this is where our objects in their database live. So this is actually what's stored in a database. And yeah, that's basically the gist of what our app is. So let me just go file by file. And if you guys have any questions, I'm always here at the end. So we have API.py, which is going to have all our controllers. It doesn't necessarily need to be called API.py. It could have you could have a folder, and then in each file you can have like a specific router. So users.py, notes.py, like specific things.py, and then you include a router within each of those files, and then you're organizing your code already with that, right? Those are for large-scale applications. CRUD.py is where you actually execute a specific task. You manipulate data in the database. Database.py, it's just where we declare our database session, where we create a session. It's not really important in our case for this workshop, but it's good to know. Dependencies are things that we need to be executed before we run the rest of our code for our controllers. So when we depend on something, we get something. We actually get something. Something actually has to be returned when we depend on something, and then we use that thing that we have, right? So like get current user, we actually depend on other things. Dependencies can also have other dependencies. Main.py is where our FastAPI object is declared, and it combines everything together. So you can see I included multiple routers for different things. So /API/users and /API/notes. So all the APIs for users are here, and all the APIs for notes are here. Like I said, this is a notes app. Models.py is where we declare all our models that are for our database. So these are things that we actually see within our database. Schemas are things that we take in as requests, we expect as requests, and then things we expect as responses, right? So when we create something, we actually use this schema through Python type hints, right? FastAPI heavily relies on type hints, like you see here with the colon. So like you can use int, string, str, list, whatever. But if you guys know what type hints are, they're something brand new over 3.6 plus. That's why FastAPI only works on Python 3.6 plus. So these are basically type hints for these functions. And they're basically, with these type hints, we're actually able to know what we should validate and so forth. Security.py is just a bunch of utilities for validating things and things of that nature. And settings.py is where we put all of our settings. You can actually read more on this here. And that's basically it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put in the chat. But I'm just going to begin our quiz. If you guys want, whoever's number one on this, they get a $25 Amazon card, and it's within 2 minutes. So the quiz is timed, and you have to quickly do it. So it's a fast-paced quiz. Let's see who wins it. Let's see who gets it. And I'm always around at the end of the workshop if you guys have any questions regarding your hacker project, if you ever want to use FastAPI, or if you want to use Django or Spring or Node.js. I'm good with that. I'm a web developer. I've utilized multiple frameworks. I just found this web framework to be the best. But let's actually go to the Slido.com. So everyone, please join this. So you have a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. So let's see. I don't know if I can see. How many users? Can I even see how many users there are? I haven't used this before. Join the quiz, guys. So go to slido.com. Go to slido.com, put in this number. You have a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. We have 2 people who have joined us. Let's see if anyone else. Felix. All right, we have 3 people now. I'm going to give it like another minute just so everyone else can join. Sorry if this workshop was pretty quick. I wrote a lot of code, which was not really necessary for our workshop, but it allowed us to actually create like a fully functioning web app that talked to a relational database. And I provided some good comments above each file so you guys can understand what each part of the code does, so you can actually implement things for yourself. But sort of get the gist. Just if you want to use FastAPI, it can also work with anything else. Like if you like, I had SQL Alchemy as like object relational mapping. You can use Peewee. You can use like different type of databases. You can use FastAPI with RESTs, GraphQL, WebSockets. You can mix it up. What's most important about FastAPI is its controllers, right? It takes in request, takes back a response, sends back a response, and it does it through type-ins. All right, so I have 4 people here. Gonna start in like 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right. We got 4 challengers here. Let's start the quiz. So what can you do with FastAPI? And I just said it earlier. All right, 3 out of 4 people guessed that. All right, yeah, all of the above. Create WebSockets, GraphQL. Let's go. Let's continue. Okay, Felix is number 1. Felix is number 1 here. Let's go. Let's go. All right, let's move on to the next one. Which statement is true about controllers and services? All right, we got 67% on that. We got 67% on that. All right, let's move on. Felix, 2 out of 2. All right, Alec can make it. Alec can make it. I can see it. Let's go. Which statement is true about schemas and models in the workshop example app? All right, someone's listening here. Schemas.py does define the properties that are exposed and consumed via the API. Like it defines what we're expecting for the request and what we expect for the response. Right? Let's move on. Oh, Alec got it. Alec's up on top now. Okay, what can you use with FastAPI to manipulate data in a database? Ooh, we got to split. It's all of the above. Okay. Alec is up top. Felix, you gotta come up, man. You gotta come up. All right. Which statement is true about JWTs? I don't think I actually covered this, so I'm just gonna skip this right now. What is true about FastAPI? All of the above. All right, let's see who got this. Alec, congratulations. I put down your name. Can you open a ticket on Discord if you want to claim your prize, and then open up a ticket hashtag help desk, I think. If not, just reach out to me, Alvin Tang. And that's about it. That wraps up our workshop. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or reach out to me directly. Okay, how do you open up tickets? No problem, Felix. No problem, Steven. I'll see you guys. Alec. Hashtag help desk. No problem, Sarah. Have a good one, guys. If you guys are need any help with web development, back end, front end, feel free to reach out to me, or feel free to put some messages in the chat. I can definitely help you on your hackathon project if you guys need any help. Well, I'm not going to do the whole project for you. I'm just saying, but feel free to ask any questions if you need any help. Okay, let's stop sharing my screen. I see people leaving. All right, bye, guys.